The Kremlin lights burned deep into the Moscow night, casting long reflections across polished marble floors and heavy oak tables. Outside, snow drifted quietly against the thick walls, muffling the city, but inside the air was tense and sharp. President Vladimir Putin stood at the head of the room, his posture rigid, his expression controlled to the point of unreadability. Around him sat senior generals in decorated uniforms, intelligence chiefs with tired eyes, and advisors scrolling through tablets filled with maps, satellite images, and intercepted reports. Large screens lined the walls, showing Eastern Europe in a mosaic of color-coded zones, arrows, and blinking markers that shifted as new information flowed in. Putin began speaking without raising his voice. He did not need to. Every word landed with weight. He spoke of sovereignty, of security, of historical responsibility. He spoke of threats gathering near Russia's borders, of red lines ignored, of patience exhausted. The language was formal, almost academic, but beneath it ran a current of unmistakable menace. When he reached the core of his message, the room seemed to lean inward, as if the walls themselves were listening. Russia, he said, would respond decisively to any action that endangered its fundamental interests. The consequences, he added, would be extraordinary. No one asked him to clarify. No one needed to. The implication hung in the air, cold and absolute. Nuclear weapons were never named, yet everyone present understood that the warning pointed unmistakably in that direction. A general shifted slightly in his chair. An aide paused mid-typing. Even those who had heard similar statements before felt the familiar chill return, sharper than last time. Within minutes, the carefully prepared statement was released. Russian state media carried it with solemn music and dramatic headlines, framing it as a defensive necessity forced upon the nation by external aggression. Commentators spoke of strength and resolve, assuring viewers that Russia sought peace but would not accept humiliation. On other channels, analysts dissected the phrasing word by word, searching for hidden signals, debating whether the ultimatum marked a genuine shift or another step in a long campaign of pressure. Across Europe, phones rang in foreign ministries and presidential residences. Emergency briefings were called. Diplomats rushed from dinner tables back to secure rooms. The words from Moscow were translated, retranslated, and compared to previous statements, each comma examined for meaning. Some leaders urged calm, others prepared contingency plans. The memory of past crises, missile standoffs, near misses, moments when the world had come frighteningly close to catastrophe, rose again like ghosts. In Kyiv, the announcement arrived just as the night air was split by the wail of air raid sirens. People moved quickly, practiced now in the routines of war. Officials descended into reinforced bunkers beneath government buildings, carrying folders and phones, expressions tight with fatigue and determination. President Volodymyr Zelensky listened as advisors summarized the statement, their voices echoing slightly against concrete walls. Arguments broke out almost immediately. Some believed the ultimatum was designed to slow Ukraine's momentum, to frighten allies and fracture support. Others warned that dismissing it outright would be dangerous, that even a bluff could spiral out of control. On the streets above, civilians huddled in shelters, scrolling through news feeds on cracked phone screens. Parents pulled children closer. Elderly neighbors whispered prayers. The threat felt abstract yet deeply personal, a reminder that the war was not only about trenches and drones, but about forces powerful enough to end cities in an instant. Far from the capitals, along muddy front lines and scarred villages, Ukrainian soldiers heard the news through radios and hurried messages. Some laughed bitterly, shaking their heads as they cleaned rifles or checked ammunition. They had heard nuclear warnings before, each one meant to sap morale and slow their advance. Others grew quiet, staring out into the dark fields where distant artillery flashed like heat lightning. For them, the threat was just another layer of uncertainty piled onto an already brutal existence. Russian soldiers, too, absorbed the message in their own way. In barracks and makeshift shelters, they listened as officers repeated the official line. Russia was strong, prepared, unafraid. Yet among the ranks, whispers spread. What would escalation really mean? Who would bear its cost? The war had already taken so much. As the hours passed, the ultimatum rippled outward, touching markets and media rooms, think tanks and living rooms. Financial screens flickered with sudden drops. News channels filled with experts gesturing at maps, warning of worst-case scenarios while insisting calm was still possible. Social media surged with fear, defiance, sarcasm, and despair, all colliding in a chaotic stream. Back in the Kremlin, the meeting continued long after the statement was released. Logistics were reviewed, readiness levels discussed, contingency plans dusted off and updated. Putin listened more than he spoke now, his fingers steepled, his gaze fixed on the glowing maps. The machinery of a great power was in motion, deliberate and heavy. Outside, Moscow slept uneasily, unaware of the precise words exchanged behind those walls, but sensing, perhaps instinctively, that something significant had shifted. Across the world, millions went to bed with the same uneasy thought. The warning had been issued,
the line had been drawn, and the space for error felt thinner than ever.